Alrighty, welcome back everybody to the 24-week mark of our JavaScript session. That means that we have hit the 6-month mark. Wow, has time flown by so fast. 6 months, that's half of a year. Crazy to think where we started out way early in the summer month of June. In the first week, we were just getting used to it, starting to teach online, making some new connections, teaching material which we never really talked about before in in-person sessions, to all the way to now, learning so much. We made so many projects, had so much fun, learned a lot of cool things through our fun facts, and all in all, it's been a crazy, hectic 6 months. But we've gone through it. We got Thanksgiving break coming up next week, and hopefully you guys will be enjoying that. But give yourselves a pat on the back, a much deserved pat on the back for making it out here with us till the 6-month mark. Crazy. But in case you guys are coming from our web development course, welcome back to the 4-month mark, aka week number 16. Equally as much credit to you, but if you're coming back from our number 1 week in our JavaScript session, you are a true believer in our system, right? So thank you so much for coming out. Hope you guys are doing fine. And per the usual, guys, we're going to be grinding, working on a project today, having a lot of fun as we wrap up our JavaScript session within the next month as well, aside with our Intro to Programming course. But yeah, without any further ado, let's get to it. In case you guys don't already know who I am, my guys, you guys should already know by now. This should go without saying. My name is Rayon Siddiqui. I'm a senior at James B. Cohen High School. Love to program. You guys see the enthusiasm. You want to check me out, what I've been making, stuff I've been working on, you can check me out on my website at rayonsiddiqui.com. Also, in the coming month, I hope to release a book coming out about a realistic fiction book about a character who's guiding his journey through the world of high school and about tech. If I get a chance, I'll definitely share more about that book when it comes out soon, but something to look out for. If you want to see updates, you can follow me on my Instagram and check me out on my website as well. But now let's get towards our agenda for today. That being that firstly, we're going to get started off with our daily fun fact of the day, a fact which actually relates to something which just happened in the past couple of days. Then we're going to talk about our Hangman project, which we've been working on for the past month, wrapping up the last major component which I see today. Go over the code from last week, guys, discuss the code for this week, and finally code that last major part. So first things first, how about we get started off with a quick reminder, that being for the upcoming month of December. Now, guys, there are two main things which I want you guys to remember. For this upcoming month of December, we got 4 more web development courses coming up. We got this all of these Wednesdays. We can see the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, and the 30th as well. That is 5. I believe we do not have one on the 30th. I'll get back to you next week if we do. But I believe we have, including this one, we have 5 web developing courses left. And if you're not including this one, we got 4 left in the month of December. Meaning our web developing course, just like our Intro to Programming course, will both be coming to a natural end after what next month will be 7 months of lots and lots of coding, lots and lots of problem solving. But for this upcoming month of December, we will also be starting at 4:30 now, as opposed to right now where we're going at 3:30. We know that school has been hectic as well with online, so we want to give you guys a bit of more of a breather, and we'll be starting now at 4:30 p.m. going until around 5:15-ish, 5:15. And hopefully you guys can help us spread the word. If you know people who aren't able to show up because of our timings, would definitely really appreciate it if you can let them know that we're going to be pushing back an hour so we can get more and more people coming out and have an even better time. As always, guys, if I'm going through this and you guys got questions about schedule, code, anything at all, feel free to drop it in the chat. You can private chat me or drop it in the question and answer section as well. Alrighty. So now let's get on towards with our cool JavaScript fun fact of the day. That being a fact which something just happened a couple of days ago. You probably heard over the weekend that there was a space launch into space with the SpaceX company. NASA and SpaceX, they previously partnered way back in the summer, and they did it again to send 4 astronauts into the space and onto the International Space Station. Now, if you're not aware, the International Space Station is something which was relatively new. In the past 20 years, it's essentially a revolving around our Earth. It's orbiting our Earth, and it's a pretty large spacecraft which is orbiting our Earth. And essentially, astronauts are always occupying and staying inside the station. Now, the reason they stay inside the station is to perform tests, They want to perform chemical tests. They want to check how plants are affected by certain variables, doing all that type of stuff. And in order to do that, they are able to go to the International Space Station and perform these cool tests. Now, this International Space Station is pretty cool. If you've already checked out some videos and behind the scenes of it, I would highly recommend. There have been some pretty cool astronauts who've gone up there, like Chris Hadfield, and he's actually taught classes to elementary schools from space. That is something pretty cool. I would definitely recommend you check out. But today's cool JavaScript fun fact is relating the International Space Station. That being that we can track the location of the International Space Station with the programming language which we are studying of JavaScript. So I'm saying that we can check the exact coordinates, aka like if I have a phone and I'm driving my phone knows my exact location through a GPS, right? Well, I'm saying that we can sort of GPSify the ISS, the International Space Station, and check the exact coordinates of where it is at. Well, how is that possible? Well, you see, there are people who've actually done this, and we'll go and see an example real quick in a couple minutes. But essentially, the location is being updated every 10 to 15 seconds, I believe it is, every 9 seconds, actually. The location of the International Space Station is updated every 9 seconds. And that information is then communicated through a database. And using that database, we're able to read it, perform some real-time calculations, and check where the International Space Station is. And through using JavaScript, we can link the real-time database and create the actual website. Now you're probably thinking, wait, if somebody's in space, if something in this case, like the International Space Station, if it's orbiting the Earth and it's in space, how is it communicating with us down here at Earth? I mean, we're thousands of miles away. How is that even possible? Well, you see, it's actually very possible because of radio satellites and a certain communication method which the International Space Station has to ground control. You know, a pretty cool example of this is how astronauts vote. You're probably thinking that, hey, if an astronaut's in space, does their vote count? Well, in fact, it's something which has happened countless times, and it actually happened this past time as well. There was a woman, I believe, from the US who was on the International Space Station, and she casted her ballot, aka her vote, for the president from the International Space Station. And the way she did that was that NASA has set up some type of communication through the computers they have International Space Station, and they essentially connected those computers to satellites. And essentially, if you think about it, the computer sent a signal to the satellite, which sent that signal back down to the ground team. And hopefully, they believe that nobody should have been able to see who she voted for, and hopefully that's what happened. But it's pretty cool to see that we can actually communicate stuff which is happening so far away from us in such a local level. So in fact, how about now we open up and check this website out? It's pretty cool, I must say. Give me 1 second. There we go. So this is actually is a live feed updating the location of the International Space Station, which, fun fact, is moving at 17,500 miles per hour. Now that's relative in our terms. Like if a car right here is going, let alone 150 miles per hour, that's pretty fast. If it's going 17,500 miles per hour, that's like the speed of light on Earth. But in space, that is a bit different. As you grow up, you'll learn about how velocity and speed are a bit different than compared to Earth because of the effects of gravity. But it's still pretty cool to think about that we can see where the ISS is at currently. So if I hover over it, looks like the longitude and latitude, aka the coordinates, are currently at 32.22 and looks like negative 51.74. And we also have the ability to zoom out, it seems like, and zoom in to see where the ISS is at. And if you take a look at these numbers right here, you can probably see my cursor. You see that loading symbol every now and then? Well, that's showing that the website is being updated. And the way it's being updated is through the live feed, which is being updated every 8 seconds. That's pretty fast. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whoa, there we go. You can see that the numbers are changing, signifying to us that the position of the ISS is moving as well. So something cool to talk about, you know, with the space launch which just happened. Cool fun fact to share with your friends that, hey, I know how to ascend, although I don't know how to make the website at this point, I know how the website was made, and that's something which is invaluable. Going back once more to show us the cool things we can do with the language of JavaScript. Alrighty. All right, guys. So let's get on moving on towards with our Hangman project, which we've been working on for the past almost month or 5 weeks now. It's been. This is for sure one of our largest projects we have made to date, and the reason is because it has a lot of working components. It's not simply like a guessing game or a quiz game show which we're making, which we got some if-else statements. We got a lot more stuff going on, but we have been going through the ride. Remember, guys, the basic idea with the game is that it's a guessing the word game with letters in which the user can input. We've been talking about this for the past month. Essentially, the computer chooses a word. We're supposed to guess that word, and if we don't within 8 number of tries, I believe we said last week, then you lose the game. Remember, the core concepts which we're utilizing with this game are variables, functions, a bunch of loops, parameters, if-else statements, and last week something which we emphasized a ton, that being substringing, aka extracting certain letters from our word. And the way we used that last week was to compare the user's input. And speaking of last week, we also added the ability for the user to only guess a certain amount of times, meaning the user could only guess 8 letters. And if not, that means they took the L and they lost the game. And we also did some calculation, checking if the user entered the correct letter, meaning did they enter a letter? Was it lowercase? Was it not a number? And also last week, we added the some functions making the HTML look nice when the user lost. And now this week, we're going to be adding that final major component, which I was talking about earlier, that component being checking if the user's won. You know, up to this point, we've checked if the user has lost the game, but we really have not checked if the user has won the game. And that can only happen when the user has guessed all of the letters and filling up all the blank spaces on the screen. And also, if we have time, we'll be adding the ability for the user to guess the whole word. So say like I'm on my second try and the word is basketball, and I see the letter B, A, S, and K already popped up. I probably know that it's going to be basketball, the word is going to be. So I don't want to have to go through, input all the letters one by one. I want to create a button, which will do that for me. I just click a button. It says, okay, give me your guess. And if I guess the whole word spelled out correctly, then I win the game. So something which we shall be adding afterwards as well. So knowing all that, guys, how about we remember our idea with today's code is going to be utilizing the concept of substringing once again to check if there are any blank spaces which exist in the word, and we'll be using some if-else logic in order to compare and see if there are any blank spaces. That means that you're still going on, you have not won the game, but if there are no blank spaces, that means you are a winner. So without any further ado, guys, how about we open up our online JavaScript website? As always, I will be dropping the link to our code in the chat, and you can also find it in the Google Classroom. Just want to confirm, Bhadra, you have our Google Classroom code, right? All right, awesome. So I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to get on the website, and we'll get started shortly. Alrighty, so as you guys are getting on the website, how about we just take a look at what we accomplished last week? That being, so if, let's see what the word is. I think it's basketball. Yep, so I know the word is basketball. So if I put in purposefully incorrect letters, so if I put letter P, keep on guessing the letter P until I get 8 incorrect letter guesses, the computer tells me that I have lost the game, and it tells me the correct word. But there's one thing which we haven't really done. That being so, if I guess the word correctly, what's the word? Let's see. Is it hockey? Nope. Is it football? It is football. So if I guess the word football correctly, we see that I do not win the game when I've guessed all the letters correctly. And that's something which we're going to be working on today. So before we get towards the code, I'm going to go over a quick visualization so we understand how the code is going to work. So right now, guys, we have a bunch of blank spaces. So say the word right now is bats, right? So I know that the word is bats. Now we can see that, say there's been 3 tries. So I say the first try I guess the letter A, then I guess the letter A, then I guess the letter T, and then finally I guess the letter S. Now, if in the chat, I want you guys to tell me, how do you think is going to be a good way for us to essentially use the concept of substringing to check if the user has won? What would be an effective way? What do you think? Do you think that if we know all the blank spaces have been filled up? I want to hear some of your guys' thoughts. How do you think is the best way for us to check if the user has won? And remember, guys, no idea is a bad idea. You can privately chat me. I love hearing what you guys got to say. Bhadra, any thoughts? Any thoughts? How do you have an idea of how you think maybe we could check to see if a winner has been crowned? Alrighty, and so the correct way which we're going to be doing it today is going to be involving checking if there are still any blank spaces in our string variable holding the letters. So right now we have a variable called display, which is holding all of the letters and the underscores, which represent blank spaces, and it's all mixed together. However, we know that if a person is going to win the game, all we have to do is run a for loop going over each and every blank space. And essentially, what we're going to do is I'll write some pseudocode. We'll run an if statement, which is going to check if there are blank spaces, then we know the user has still not won. However, we know that otherwise, else if there are no more blank spaces in the display variable, then that tells us that the user has won. So remember, the idea which we're using, guys, is we're going to be checking to see if the underscores exist still in our variable, and if they don't, that means that all of the blank spaces, like think about it in real life, we have some blank spaces set up. We know that once all of the blank spaces have been filled up, that means that the user has won the game. And that's what we're going to tell the computer to do. We're going to tell the computer that, hey, look and check every time the user guesses a letter and check if there are still blank spaces existing. And if not, that tells us that the user has won the game. So knowing that, how about we translate that into some actual code? All right, so what I'm going to do is go down all the way to the bottom of my submit letter function. And remember, if you guys ever get lost or anything, you can always pull off a fresh copy from our Google Classroom right there. What I'm going to do is go below, actually delete this console.log, and go below the code, which is checking if the user has lost. And now what I'm going to do firstly is create a Boolean variable to hold the value of a true or false and check if a user has won the game. So I'm going to say var user has won game currently equals, how about we say true for now. So we'll assume that right now the user is winning. All right. And now we're going to write a for loop, which is going to go through the variable which represents all of these letters and underscores, aka blank spaces, and check if a blank space still occurs. So what I'm going to do is do a for loop. So for a var, I'll say var x equals 0, semicolon, x is less than the length of the whole display variable. So whole display like such. So whole display dot length. Remember, using dot length, we can check how long a certain variable is in terms of letters. And then just increment our variable by 1 like such. Remember, add your opening close squiggly brackets and indent inside. And now we're going to have to write an if statement, which is going to check to see if a blank space still occurs in our whole display variable. So what I'm going to do is say if the whole display variable equals an underscore, so shift hyphen, and then add an opening closed squiggly bracket and say user has won game and change the Boolean variable's value to false, because that means that you still have not won the game, obviously. But there's one thing missing. What's that one concept I said today that we're going to be using to check if there still exists a certain underscore in the variable? Anybody remember? And the correct concept is the concept of substringing. We're going to be performing a substring on our whole display variable in order to check if a underscore exists. So right now, what this if statement is doing is that it's saying if the whole display variable, aka the whole conglomerate of all the underscores, the letters, everything combined equals an underscore. And that's never going to be true. Remember, that is never going to be true because this whole display variable is always going to hold more than one single underscore. And that's because the length of our words is more than one underscore, and it wouldn't really make sense. So what we're going to do is do a dot substring, opening close parentheses, looking at every single letter which occurs in our variable. So if I get the annotate tool out, we can see right here, we got this display. This is our display variable. We're using the document object model, aka manipulating our HTML to display it. And what this code is going to do is that, let me change the color, it's going to go through each and every spot on the display variable, checking to see if a blank space exists. And right now, there are still 6 blank spaces. So that means that the user has not won the game. So this for loop is going to take care of that for us. And through using substring, we can check and see if a blank space still exists. That means that you have not won the game. All right, so now we know that if the user has won the game. So essentially, if the value of the user has won game variable, Boolean variable, is still true after this for loop runs, that means that the user has actually won the game because then that means there are no more blank spaces in our variable. So let's do some displaying if the user wins the game. So what we'll do is say if user has won game equals true. Remember, the shorthand method of doing that is just saying if user has won game, leave it like that, because this implies that you are saying if the user has won game, Boolean variable is set equal to the true value. And now here we can do some manipulation. So how about we, first of all, display the correct word. So what we'll do, I'm going to copy some code when we wrote when the user lost and paste that inside of here and change the word display to, we can say, you guessed the word correctly. It was, and then we can display the computer word. And then wherever we are changing the text of our number tries paragraph tag, right there, we can just say, congratulations, you have won the game. And remember, this code, guys, will only run if the user has won the game. So we don't need to worry about another case now. So we don't have to write a else statement, essentially, now. Give everybody a minute to catch up. Alrighty, so now how about we actually run and see if this works. So let's see what the word is. It might be soccer. Nope. Is it hockey? Nope. Oh, it just changed. I think it's basketball. Yep. All right. So let's guess the word basketball. All right, so now if I enter the letter L, we should see us win the game. And voila. There we go. The code we wrote perfectly works. We are told that congratulations, we have won the game. We guessed the word correctly. It was indeed basketball. And the way we did that, remember, guys, was running a for loop, which was substringing over each and every letter inside of our display variable, checking to see if there was a blank space. So objective number 1, checked off. And since we do have a couple or more minutes, we can squeeze in our last part of this project as well before moving on towards some of the nice things next week with adding like a reset function, stuff like that. That being the ability for the user to guess the whole word in one try. So what I'm going to do firstly is create a new button. So what I'm going to do that is just copy some code from my HTML and paste that below. And now if you see, we got 2 of the same buttons. But this button is going to be a bit different. This button is going to be, how about we say, guess whole word. And the sole purpose of this button is for you to only click it when you think you got the whole word and you don't want to enter all the singular letters. And now I'm going to change the function as well and say guess whole word function. We can just call it like that. And then change the ID to submit a whole word button, like such. So with that in mind, I'm going to go down and create the function which we wrote above. So function guess whole word, add the opening close parentheses, add the opening close squiggly brackets, like such. And now first things first, we got to get whatever the user inputted in the text field. Now we're lucky because we already did that with our other function. So I'm going to copy paste that code and go towards user current letter guess equals. We can just grab this last part, this document.getElement by ID, and get the text field's value. So I'm going to do is grab these last 2 lines like such and go down here and say var user whole word guess. This variable is going to be responsible for holding the user's entire word guess. Paste that line of code. Remember, this first line of code is going to help us get whatever the user typed in to the text field. And this next line of code is going to replace those 2 words with our current variable. Translate all of the uppercase letters to lowercase letters to make sure that we can compare the user's word and the computer's word. Give you guys a minute to do that. Alrighty. And now this function is actually pretty short because we just got one if statement to run. That being, we're going to check if the variable, aka holding the variable holding the user's entire guess, is the same as the actual word. That means that they have won the game. So I'm going to do is do if the user whole word guess equals, oh, and whatever variable is holding, so computer equals the computer word, that means that they have won the game. And now we can just copy and paste the code we wrote from the previous function, which tells us what to do when the user wins the game. And now, guys, if I hit run and now say, let's see what the word is. Is it hockey? So I know the word is hockey because I've sort of been doing this for a while. So if I hit guess whole word now, and before I do, enter the whole word, hit hockey, guess the whole word, and voila. There we go. Once again, we see that we wrote that correctly, and we are told that we have won the game and guessed the correct word. And you're probably noticing that this was a short function. Remember, guys, it's pretty basic function, not as complex as our other one, because the main idea is we're just getting whatever the user wrote and comparing the whole variable to one other whole variable and checking if the 2 variables match, aka if the 2 words the computer guessed and the user guessed match. That means the user won the game. And that takes us to the end of today's coding. As always, guys, this link will be posted on our Google Classroom in the next 10 to 15 minutes. In case you got lost, you need a fresh copy, whatever the case may be. So you guys can check the project out as well. And this brings us to the end, guys. So for next week, we'll be continuing to work on our Hangman project. Whoopsie daisies. All right, guys. So for next week, we're going to continue to work on our Hangman project, finishing it up, add a reset function and some other functionalities as well. But it's been a long journey, a lot of fun with this Hangman project. As always, hope you guys had a great time today. Hopefully you enjoyed the fun fact as well. Share with your friends, family members, guys. Take care. If you guys want, I might catch you on this Friday's teen trivia coming up. We got a fun trivia themed planned up for this Friday as well. Take care, guys. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.